testing of hypothesis theory. Now let me start from the beginning only. Statistical inference theta is the parameter, right? This is the parameter. Suppose now, as I said, in inference theory there are two aspects, so those two aspects we are going to see. Now if this theta, which is a parameter, that means that is nothing but population parameter, right? So population parameter is there. Now if this theta is totally unknown, theta, that means unknown parameter is there. Now since the theta is unknown and population is very large, what we do, we draw a random sample from the same population. So if population is there, we draw a random sample, right, from that same population, for which we are talking about this parameter theta. So population parameter is theta, which is nothing but this constant of this or constant of population, right? Now to estimate this unknown parameter theta, we draw a random sample. We use the estimate or the statistic. So statistic is nothing but the statistic is nothing but the constant of this particular sample. So we use this statistic. If I denote this statistic as a function of sample, that means if it is x indicate the function sample, then statistic t of x is nothing but the constant of this sample or function of this sample. We use this statistic t of x to estimate this population parameter. So this is nothing but estimation. In other words, what we are doing here, the population parameter is totally unknown, and to estimate that population parameter theta, we draw a random sample. We use a function of that particular sample, for example t of x, to estimate that population parameter theta, and therefore this whole situation is known as estimation. Now depending upon the situation, we can either use point estimate or interval estimate, but point estimate as well as interval estimate is a part of this estimation theory, and therefore this whole procedure, either interval estimation or point estimation, is known as estimation theory. We have studied this estimation theory in detail. We have seen different properties of the estimates and so on. सब हमने semester 1 में पढ़ा हुआ. Now another situation may occur where this parameter theta is not unknown, but due to some previous experience or because of certain situation, we have some information about theta. We have some information about theta. That means here theta is not unknown, but in fact we have some information about theta. Now our problem is now totally different. Rather than estimating, now we wanted to check whether this information about the parameter theta is correct or not. So what we are doing, we are going to test or check whether this information about parameter theta is correct or wrong, or true or false. So what I am saying here is that this parameter theta, population parameter theta, is not unknown. In fact, we have some information about parameter theta. Now our aim, our objective is not to estimate, because estimation की गरज नहीं है. We have already that information. So we have some information about parameter theta, and now we wanted to check whether this information about the population parameter theta is true or false. जो भी information हमारे पास है वो correct है कि नहीं है, ये हमें check करना है. Now how we can check whether this information is correct or not? Again what we are going to do, we are going to draw a random sample from the same population. सो यहाँ पे भी सैंपल ड्रॉ किया जाएगा, जैसे एस्टिमेशन में ड्रॉ किया था वैसे ही यहाँ पे भी सैंपल ड्रॉ किया जाएगा. नाउ यूजिंग दिस सैंपल we will check whether this information about population parameter theta is true or false. So this procedure of checking about that particular information about parameter theta, whether it is true or false, is known as testing. So what we are doing, we are here doing testing whether that information about parameter theta which is available to us, whether that information is true or false. So whole this procedure is nothing but your testing. Now as I said, we have some information about parameter theta. So that information, suppose is theta is equal to, suppose there is one experiment. Now if I say that theta is equal to 4, then that is the information which we have right now about the population parameter theta. Theta is still a population parameter, right? So suppose that information which is available to us because of some prior experience is that theta is equal to 4. So this information which right now we have theta equal to 4, we wanted to check. So what we are going to do, we are going to draw a random sample. Using that random sample, we are going to test whether this information is true or false. So theta equal to 4 जो मैंने लिखा हुआ है population parameter की information is nothing but your hypothesis. Of course we are going to write down the formal definition of hypothesis, but statement assertion made about a population parameter is nothing but the hypothesis. So you can see that theta is equal to 4, that is the statement I am making. Theta equal to 4 is the statement about what? About a population parameter theta, and I just now told you what is meant by hypothesis. Hypothesis is nothing but the statement assertion made about a population parameter theta. That means this is the hypothesis I want to check. That means what I am doing, I am checking whether theta equal to 4 is true or false using some random sample drawn from the same population, and therefore we can call this whole situation as testing of hypothesis. टेस्टिंग ऑफ हाइपोथेसिस का मतलब है चेकिंग वेदर द गिवन इंफॉर्मेशन. हाइपोथेसिस का मतलब है स्टेटमेंट अबाउट द पॉपुलेशन पैरामीटर. सो चेकिंग वेदर दैट स्टेटमेंट अबाउट अ पॉपुलेशन पैरामीटर theta, in this case theta, is correct or not, and that is nothing but testing of hypothesis. So in testing of hypothesis we are going to discuss what is meant by hypothesis, what is simple hypothesis, what is composite hypothesis, what are two types of error, what is most powerful test. All these these concept we are going to discuss through this particular presentation. Now, as I already told you, statistical inference deals with the methods of concluding the population characteristics, that means the parameters, based on the information contained in a sample drawn from the population. So same population से जो sample draw होता है, on the basis of that we make a inference about the population parameter. In other words, let x be a random variable whose probability function f theta involves a parameter theta. That means the parameter theta is an indexing parameter. Let x1 to xn be an independent observation from the population. That means x1 to xn is a random sample drawn from that particular population. The basic problem of statistical inference is, first problem is what would be the value of this population parameter. That means in this case the population parameter is totally unknown and we wanted to know what would be the value of that population parameter, right? The answer of course lies in making an informed guess, that means the estimation about this population parameter based on the random sample, right? So that is nothing but our estimation theory, where we try to answer the particular question what would be the value of the population parameter, उसको हम लोग बोलते हैं estimation. This aspect of statistical inference is called as estimation. Now the second question is that certain assertion is made about the population parameter. Certain assertion matlab certain statement, that means some information is there and therefore we are able to write down that particular statement. I have told you theta equal to 4, that means that information is there and therefore we are able to write down that assertion statement about that population parameter, that theta equal to 4. So that is nothing but the hypothesis. This information about the population parameter is tested on the basis of a sample. Please remember that we are testing whether this statement about the population parameter theta, whether that is true or false. We do this whole testing on the basis of a random sample. पूरा population के base पे नहीं करते हैं, okay? This aspect of statistical inference is called as hypothesis testing. So this is second aspect, right? For example, suppose a manufacturer of electric bulb claims that the mean life of electric bulb is equal to 2000 hours, right? So mean life of electric bulb is equal to 2000 hours. That is the claim made by the manufacturer. So naturally, if we wanted to check whether this information about the population parameter यहाँ पे क्या हो गया, mean life of electric bulbs. So that will be our population parameter theta, which is equal to 2000 hours according to this manufacturer. So this information is there. Now our aspect is not to estimate this mean life of electric bulb, वो already हमारे पास है. तो अभी हमें क्या करना है, हमें चेक करना है whether that information is true or false. That means whether this mean life of electric bulb is equal to 2000 hours is true or false. ये हमें चेक करना है, right? That means either we are going to accept this information or we are going to reject this information on the basis of a random sample. So based on the sample information, can we say that the assertion is not correct or whether that assertion is true or false? ये हम लोगों को अभी आंसर करना है. So can we do that? Yes, we can check that information on the basis of a random sample. So this aspect of statistical inference is called as I already told you, is called as hypothesis testing. यहाँ पे हम लोग टेस्ट कर रहे हैं. For example, in this case we are testing whether that mean life of electric bulb is equal to 2000 hour. ये जो information हमें मिली है, ये information correct है या false है, wrong है, right? So that testing, checking is nothing but the hypothesis testing, which is of course a part of statistical inference theory. In other words, some statement about the parameter theta is formulated on the basis of a random sample, and of course, so that means the some statement about the parameter theta is formulated, and on the basis of random sample we have to test whether it is true or false, right? So that is nothing but the testing of hypothesis. This is known as problem of testing of statistical hypothesis. Thus, statistical inference, as I just told you, has two aspects. One is estimation. Estimation may be in terms of point estimation or interval estimation, and hypothesis testing. Now, in our day-to-day life, we see different commercials, advertisements in television, newspapers, magazine, etc. Such as some of the examples you can see, you can write down numerous examples. For example, the air conditioner of certain brand saves up to 30% of electric bill, right? The car of certain brand gives average or mileage of 20 kilometers per liter. A washing powder of a certain brand produces the best wash. A claim about brand A toothpaste that saves the teeth against the cavity. So बहुत सारे एग्जाम्पल है जहाँ पे some claims are made by the manufacturer or in through the advertisement or some medium, right? Now naturally as a consumer बोलो या as a any watchdog बोलो, we have to check whether this information or claim made by the manufacturer, so that is nothing but testing. Not necessary claim को ही हम लोगों को करना है, but चेक करना है whether the information which is given to us is true or false. For example, air conditioner of certain brand saves up to 30% electric bill. So this is the information which is available to us and can be written down in the form of some statement, right? So that statement will involve this 30% electric bill, which will be nothing but our population parameter. Population parameter के term में वो लिखा जाएगा, and naturally once we have that information, then we can check whether this information is true or false on the basis of a random sample, right? So random sample को use करते हुए we can check all these claims, all these uh, uh, claims made by the manufacturer. Therefore, just now I told you, now the question may arise in our mind, can such types of claims be verified statistically? अभी वो 30% सेव हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा है, एवरेज 20 किलोमीटर पर लीटर है कि नहीं है, ये क्लेम मेड बाय द मैन्युफैक्चरर. एज ए स्टैटिस्टिशियन कैन वी चेक वेदर दीज claims made by the manufacturer are true or false, right? So statistically can we test such claims? The testing of the technique of testing such types of claims or statements or assumptions, of course, about the population parameter theta is known as testing of hypothesis. The truth or falsity of a claim or statement is never known unless we examine the entire population. So ये एक disadvantage होना ही है. Population parameter is based on certain population, right? But population को पूरा examine करना है तो उसमें statistician का कोई रोल नहीं है. 100% चेकिंग अगर करना है तो उसमें कोई रोल statistician का नहीं है. But if we wanted to check the claims made by the manufacturer on the basis of a limited information, that means on the basis of random sample, then the technique of testing of hypothesis will be there. क्योंकि मैंने अभी तक सभी जगह आपको यही बोला है कि if theta, that is population parameter का some information if we have, we check that information on the basis of a sample, not on the basis of entire population, right? So that disadvantage will always be there, right? But as I said, examining the entire population practically it is not possible in most situation, right? And therefore we have to draw a random sample. So we take a random sample from the population under study, of course, and use the information contained in this sample which we have drawn to decide whether a claim is true or false. In other words, we are taking a decision on the basis of a random sample, not on the basis of entire population. Information available in the sample will be used to check the claim made by the manufacturer. That means to check the information about the population parameter. And this whole thing is nothing but the testing of hypothesis.